emotions. The manager outlined the organizational changes with standard corporate optimism. But for Michael, the news underscored a different.
You don't lack skill. You lack visibility. And that changes everything.
And because you don't see that, you believe something else is the problem. So you work harder, thinking more effort will eventually fix what's happening. But then you see someone move ahead without doing more than you.
And that's when it becomes confusing, because effort doesn't explain what's happening anymore.
Because most of what you do happens quietly, without anyone really seeing it. And when work isn't seen, it doesn't exist, at least not in the way decisions are made. And that creates a gap between what you do and what people think you do. Because decisions aren't based on effort, they're based on perception. And perception only forms when your work is visible and understood.
And that's when it starts to click. Maybe it's not about doing more.
Maybe it's about being seen differently.
And instead of changing anything, the same pattern keeps repeating. More work, but nothing actually shifts. So you respond the only way you know, by doing more, thinking that will finally change something. But the more you do, the faster your work disappears, without leaving anything behind. Because what you're doing isn't sending a signal that the system can recognize. And the people moving forward aren't doing more, they're sending clearer signals. Because work creates output, but signals create perception, and perception drives decisions. And when you stay silent, you lose control over how people interpret your value. And that gap keeps growing between what you actually do and what people think you do. And over time, that perception becomes your identity, whether it's accurate or not.
You're not seen as someone growing, you're seen as someone consistent. And consistent people stay where they are.
Because the system prefers what is predictable over what is uncertain. And when everything works, there's no reason to question anything, especially not you.
And the better you perform, the more invisible you become, because nothing stands out anymore.
And that's the irony. The more reliable you are, the less visible you become. And once you see that, something inside you shifts, and it doesn't feel good. Because part of you still believes effort should be enough. But another part of you knows it isn't, and that changes everything.
And once you see it clearly, you start noticing it everywhere.
People doing more, but not moving, because no one sees what actually matters.
And that's when the bigger truth appears. This isn't random, it's how the system works. It doesn't reward effort, it rewards visibility.
And that awareness changes everything, even before anything else changes.
Because once you see it, you can't keep moving the same way.
So you start small, speaking more, making your work visible. And those small changes begin shifting how people see you. And perception always shifts before your position does.
And once perception shifts, opportunities start forming.
And that's the turning point, where everything starts changing, without you working harder.
And once you start making your work visible, everything around you begins to feel different.
And you begin seeing others clearly, not as better, but as more visible. And the pattern becomes obvious. The ones who move forward are the ones who are seen. And that breaks the illusion that effort alone creates progress.
And that realization feels heavy because it changes how you see everything you've been doing.
And when you look back, you start questioning everything. Every extra effort, every silent contribution.
Because most of your work existed, but was never really seen. And what isn't seen can't create opportunity, no matter how valuable it actually is. And that's the truth most people never realize until it's too late. And it's not your fault that you were taught to focus on doing, not on being seen.
But the system was never built to reward invisible effort. It rewards what can be seen, understood, and talked about.
And once you understand that, you can't ignore it anymore. Because now you see the system clearly, not the version you believed in before. And that leaves you with a choice: stay invisible, or change how you show up completely. You can keep doing more, hoping it gets noticed, even though it never has. Or you can start making your work visible in a way the system understands. And that awareness alone changes more than years of silent effort. Because once you see it, you begin moving differently without forcing it. And slowly, people begin responding differently, even before anything official changes. Because now, you're aligned with how the system actually works.
And that clarity changes everything, even before your situation does.
It was never about how much you did. It was about how much was seen.
And once you see that, everything about your past effort feels different.
And the hardest truth to accept is what comes next.
You're not overlooked because you're not good enough.
Recognition is vital for team morale, yet for some, it only highlights what they lack. How do we navigate the psychology of promotion?
You're overlooked because no one ever saw you clearly. And most people never fix that. Until it's already too late.